Imagine this. It's the dead of night in 2025, and the Giza Plateau lies silent under a sky so clear you can almost touch the stars. A team of scientists, their faces lit only by the faint glow of their equipment, huddle around a small metal box pressed into the sand near the Great Sphinx. The air is heavy, thick with the weight of secrets older than time itself. Suddenly, their screens flicker. A pulse races through the limestone beneath, and the data comes back sharp, undeniable, and impossible. Beneath the pores of the Sphinx, a vast network of chambers unfolds. Not just a single room, but an entire city buried in stone, stretching deep into the earth. A city no one was supposed to find. A city that could rewrite everything we thought we knew about human history. But here's the kicker. Whispers are spreading. Whispers that someone, or something, wants this discovery buried again. Why? What's down there that's so dangerous it's being hidden from the world? This isn't just another dig in the desert. This is the kind of find that makes your heart race. The kind that keeps you up at night wondering what's been locked away beneath the sands of Egypt for millennia. The year is 2025, and the Khafre project, a cutting-edge archaeological effort, has just dropped a bombshell. Using cosmic ray imaging technology that can see through solid rock like an X-ray through skin, they've mapped something extraordinary under the Giza Plateau. Not just a single chamber, not just the fabled Hall of Records that Edgar Cayce, the sleeping prophet, spoke of in the 1930s. No, this is bigger. A labyrinth of tunnels, rooms and structures sprawling beneath the Sphinx and stretching toward the Great Pyramid. Some are calling it a lost city, a relic of a civilization so advanced it makes our history books look like children's stories. Others are calling it something else entirely, a vault of forbidden knowledge, guarded by forces that don't want it uncovered. The data is staggering. The imaging shows rectangular chambers, perfectly aligned, with walls that look carved, not eroded. Some are massive, as big as a football field, others small and precise, like storage rooms or ritual spaces. There's even a hint of a central hub, a circular chamber deep underground, where the tunnels seem to converge. The readings suggest metal, maybe even crystalline structures, buried in the limestone. And then there's the sound, a low, rhythmic hum, picked up by sensitive microphones placed near the Sphinx's base. It's not seismic activity, not wind, not anything the scientists can explain. It's like the Earth itself is whispering, a frequency that pulses in time with something ancient, something alive. The team is buzzing with excitement, but also fear. Because every time they push deeper, strange things start happening. Equipment malfunctions, permits get delayed, and anonymous messages warn them to stop digging. Now, let's step back for a moment and unpack this. The Khafre project wasn't looking for a lost city. They were studying soil stability, making sure the Sphinx and pyramids wouldn't crumble under their own weight. But when they fired those cosmic rays into the ground, they got more than they bargained for. The lead scientist, a guy named Filippo Biondi, described the moment the first images came back. He said it was like staring into a ghost. The shapes were too perfect, too deliberate to be natural caves or cracks. His team cross-checked the data with older seismic scans from 1991, when researchers like Thomas de Becky found rectangular voids under the Sphinx's pores. Those earlier scans had already raised eyebrows. Hinting at the Hall of Records, Cayce described a library of ancient knowledge from a lost civilization called Atlantis. But this new discovery blows that out of the water. It's not just a room, it's a whole underground complex, maybe even a blueprint of a world that vanished 12,000 years ago. So, what's down there? That's the question that grabs you by the throat and won't let go. Is it really a city built by survivors of a global flood, like Cayce said? He claimed Atlantis was a real place, a civilization that mastered energies we've forgotten, only to be wiped out by catastrophe. The survivors, he said, fled to places like Egypt, where they carved the Sphinx and hid their knowledge in stone. The 1991 scans seemed to back him up, pinpointing voids exactly where he predicted. But now, the picture is clearer and wilder. Some researchers are whispering about artifacts that don't fit any known culture. Metallic objects, crystalline panels, maybe even technology that doesn't belong to human hands. And here's where it gets weird. Posts on X are buzzing with claims that these findings tie to UFOs. Yeah, you heard that right. People are saying the chambers might hold evidence of extraterrestrial contact, ancient machines, or even blueprints for crafts that could explain the pyramid's impossible precision. But not everyone's thrilled about this. The Egyptian government is clamping down hard. Permits for further scans are stuck in bureaucratic limbo. Zahi Hawass, the legendary gatekeeper of Egyptian archaeology, has already called the claims Western fantasies, insisting the voids are just natural fissures. Sound familiar? He said the same thing in 1991, when seismic data first hinted at chambers. But there's more. Sources on X, and I'm not saying you should believe everything. You read their claim Hawass himself was seen inspecting a sealed tunnel under the Sphinx late one night, escorted by military guards. The footage, they say, was confiscated, and the documentary never aired. Then there's the Vatican angle. Rumors are swirling that the Catholic Church, of all things, has a stake in keeping this quiet. Why? Some say the archives under the Sphinx might hold texts that challenge the foundations of modern religion, texts that tie human history to a pre-flood world, maybe even to beings from another world. And let's not forget the strangest piece of all, that hum. The scientists call it a resonant frequency, a low vibration that seems to pulse in sync with the Earth's own magnetic field. It's not constant, it comes and goes, strongest at dawn when the Sphinx faces the rising Sunday. Some on the team swear it's mechanical, like the echo of a machine that's been dormant for millennia. Others think it's something else, something spiritual, like the Earth itself is trying to speak. There's even a wild theory floating around that this frequency could be a key, a way to unlock the chambers, like a password coded into the stone. Imagine that, a sound that opens a door to a lost world. But every time the team tries to record it, their equipment fritzes out, as if something doesn't want to be heard. This isn't just about archaeology anymore. It's about power. Who gets to control the truth? If there's a city under Giza, what does it say about our past? Could it prove we're not the first advanced civilization to walk this planet? Could it mean we've been lied to, not just by history books, but by governments, institutions, maybe even secret societies? Some claim the CIA's involved, tied to black-budget projects that have been studying ancient tech for decades. Others point to a supposed Atlantean haul of Epstein records, a bizarre conspiracy linking the chambers to modern elites hiding ancient knowledge. It sounds crazy, but when you're staring at data that shouldn't exist, crazy starts to feel plausible. Let's ground this for a second. The Caffrey project's findings aren't public yet, at least, not fully. The team's been tight-lipped, but leaks have made it to journals like the Archaeological Review and sites like Gaia.com. They describe chambers that align perfectly with the Sphinx's axis, some leading toward the Great Pyramid, others branching out like a subway system. The cosmic ray tech they're using is no joke. It's the same stuff that found hidden rooms in the Great Pyramid back in 2017. But unlike that discovery, which was shouted from the rooftops, this one's being buried. Why? Maybe because the implications are too big. If there's a city down there, it could mean the Sphinx is way older than the 4th dynasty, maybe 10,000 years old, built when the Sahara was green and rivers flowed where sand now rules. That's not just a history rewrite, it's a paradigm shift. And then there's Edgar Cayce, the man who saw this coming almost a century ago. In the 1930s, he'd fall into a trance, his voice low and steady, describing a vault under the Sphinx's right paw, filled with scrolls, crystals, maybe even machines from Atlantis. He gave exact coordinates, down to the foot, and said it would be found in the 1990s. He was off by a few decades, but the 1991 scans, and now the 2025 discovery line up with his words in a way that gives you chills. How did a guy from Virginia, with no training in archaeology, know exactly where to look? Was he tapping into something bigger, some kind of universal memory? Or was it just a lucky guess that keeps haunting us? The desert doesn't give up its secrets easily. Every shovel that's touched the sand around the Sphinx has been met with resistance not just from nature, but from people. The Egyptian government says it's about protecting their heritage, and who can blame them? The Sphinx isn't just a statue, it's a symbol of a nation's pride. But when permits vanish, when data gets locked away, when researchers get warned to back off, you start to wonder, is it really about preservation, or is something bigger at play? The Vatican rumors keep circling claims that ancient texts under the Sphinx might rewrite the story of creation itself. And don't get me started on the UFO angle. X is flooded with posts saying the chambers hold proof of alien contact, maybe even tech that explains how the pyramids were built. It's the kind of thing you'd laugh off, except the data keeps piling up and the hum keeps humming. So here we are, standing at the edge of a mystery that's been whispering to us for centuries. The Sphinx stares east, its face half eroded but still defiant, guarding something we can't quite touch. Is it a city? A library? A machine from another time? Or another world? Or is it just empty space? A trick of the limestone that's been teasing us since Napoleon's men first poked around here? The truth is, we don't know. And that's what makes it impossible to look away. Every pulse of that cosmic ray scan, every echo of that strange hum, feels like a question we're not ready to answer. But one thing's for sure. Whatever's down there, someone doesn't want us to find it. Oh, and by the way, I'm Mr. H from Mystery History for Sleep. If you're as hooked on this as I am, hit that subscribe button and tap the bell so you don't miss the next chapter. Your support keeps these stories coming, and trust me, we're just getting started. Now, let's slip back into the desert night where the sand still shifts over secrets waiting to be told. The Sphinx hasn't moved in thousands of years, but its story? That's still unfolding, one whisper at a time. In the quiet of a small Virginia house in 1932, a man named Edgar Cayce closed his eyes, slipped into a trance, and began to speak of a world lost to time. His voice, soft but steady, carried words that seemed to come from somewhere beyond himself, as if the past was whispering through him. He described a hidden chamber beneath the Great Sphinx of Giza, a vault he called the Hall of Records, buried under the right paw, holding the secrets of a civilization that vanished beneath the waves 12,000 years ago. Atlantis, he said, was no myth. It was a real place, a society of unimaginable knowledge, and its survivors had left a message in stone for those who would come after. Cayce's words weren't vague guesses, they came with coordinates, precise enough to map, pinpointing a spot in the Egyptian desert that would, decades later, make scientists sit up and stare. How could a man with no training, no access to modern technology, know exactly where to look? That question still haunts us, and it's where our story dives deeper into the mystery. Edgar Cayce wasn't your typical prophet. Born in 1877 in a small Kentucky town, he was a quiet man, a photographer by trade, with a knack for falling into trances that let him see things others couldn't. By the 1930s, he was known as the Sleeping Prophet, a nickname earned from the way he'd lie down, close his eyes, and speak in a voice that felt like it came from another time. His followers gathered in his modest home, where a stenographer sat by lamplight, her pencil racing to capture every word. Cayce's readings, as they called them, covered everything from health cures to ancient history, but the ones about Egypt hit hardest. Night after night, he returned to the same vision, a chamber under the Sphinx, sealed by survivors of Atlantis, filled with scrolls, crystals, and maybe even machines that could change how we see the world. The Hall of Records, Cayce said, wasn't just a tomb or a treasure vault. It was a library of human memory, a record of everything we'd forgotten. He described Atlantis as a civilization that mastered energies we can't even dream of today, think harnessing the Earth's magnetic field or channeling light into power. Around 12,000 years ago, a great flood swallowed their cities, but a few survived, carrying their knowledge to places like Egypt. There, they carved the Sphinx, not as a monument, but as a guardian, its lion body facing east to mark the dawn of a new era. Under its right paw, they hid their archive, a collection of wisdom meant to be found when humanity was ready. Cayce's voice, recorded in those dim-lit sessions, gave details that were almost too specific. The chamber's entrance was at a precise angle, reachable through a passage sloping down from the Sphinx's base. He even predicted it would be uncovered in the 1990s, a date that came eerily close when seismic scans in 1991 lit up with voids in the exact spot he described. What made Cayce's visions so unsettling wasn't just their clarity, it was how they seemed to tap into something bigger. He didn't claim to understand where the information came from. In trance, he spoke like a man reading from a book he couldn't see, his words flowing with a certainty that made his stenographer's hands tremble. One of them, a woman named Gladys Davis, later said it wasn't belief that shook her, but the way Cayce's voice carried an authority that felt like he'd walked those chambers himself. She'd sit at a small desk, her pencil scratching out coordinates and descriptions, while above her, a map of the Sphinx hung on the wall, marked with a question mark between its paws. That map wasn't just a sketch, it was a blueprint, drawn from words spoken in a trance, pointing to a place no one had seen in millennia. Cayce's readings didn't stop at Egypt. He painted a picture of Atlantis as a global hub, a place where people manipulated crystals to store energy, where they built machines that could heal or destroy. When the flood came, triggered by their own hubris or a cosmic shift, the survivors scattered, seeding colonies in places like the Yucatan, the Andes, and the Nile Valley. The Sphinx, he said, was built around 10,000 BC, thousands of years before Egypt's pharaohs, by exiles who wanted to leave a marker for the future. The Hall of Records was their insurance policy, a time capsule holding the story of their rise and fall, along with tools to rebuild what was lost. Cayce described scrolls etched with unknown scripts, metallic tablets that hummed with strange vibrations, and crystals that glowed faintly, as if still charged with the energy of a forgotten science. This wasn't just storytelling. Cayce's predictions had a precision that baffled his listeners. He gave exact measurements for the chamber's location down to the foot, describing a passage that sloped at a specific angle, hidden under layers of sand and stone. He spoke of other halls too, one in the Yucatan and another near Bimini in the Bahamas, forming a global network of archives. But the one under the Sphinx was the key, the central vault, guarded by a lion-headed sentinel that stared into eternity. His followers, organized under the Association for Research and Enlightenment, or AR, took his words as gospel, preserving thousands of pages of transcripts in a Virginia Beach archive. They believed the Hall of Records wasn't just a myth, it was a promise, a chance for humanity to reconnect with a wisdom we'd lost. Fast forward to 1991, and Cayce's words started to feel less like prophecy and more like a map. A team led by geophysicist Thomas DeBecke sent seismic waves through the Sphinx's base, expecting to find nothing but solid limestone. Instead, their instruments lit up with echoes of rectangular voids, perfectly aligned, right where Cayce said the Hall of Records would be. The data was clear. Something was down there, about 25 feet below the right paw, with sharp edges that didn't look natural. The readings matched Cayce's coordinates so closely that even skeptics raised an eyebrow. But here's where it gets wild. The Caffrey project took it further. Using cosmic ray imaging, they found not just a chamber, but a sprawling network of tunnels and rooms, stretching out like a city under the Giza Plateau. The alignment with Cayce's predictions was uncanny, down to the angle of the passages he described decades before anyone had the tech to see beneath the sand. How did he do it? That's the question that keeps you awake at night. Cayce wasn't an archaeologist. He'd never been to Egypt, never studied geology or history. Yet his words pointed to a spot that modern science keeps circling back to. Some say he tapped into a kind of universal memory, what scientists today might call the quantum field, a shared consciousness where past and future blur. Posts on X have gone wild with this idea, suggesting Cayce was channeling information from Atlantis itself, maybe even from beings who helped build it. Others think he was just lucky, his guesses lining up with natural quirks in the limestone. But when you look at the 1991 scans and the 2025 data, luck starts to feel like a stretch. The voids are too precise, too deliberate. And now we're talking about a whole underground complex, not just a single room. Cayce's visions weren't just about the Hall of Records. He saw the Sphinx as more than a statue, it was a marker, a celestial clock. He said it was built when the constellation Leo rose with the sun at the vernal equinox, around 10,500 BC. That's thousands of years before Egypt's fourth dynasty, when mainstream archaeologists say the Sphinx was carved for Pharaoh Khafre. Cayce's timeline flips everything we know upside down. If he's right, the Sphinx isn't just older than the pyramids, it's older than any known civilization. And the Hall of Records? It's not just a library, it's a challenge, a test to see if we're ready to face our own forgotten past. He said the chamber would be opened when humanity reached a turning point, a moment when we'd need the knowledge inside to survive what's coming. He even hinted at 2026 as a key year, when the stars would align again, and the Sphinx's gaze would point to something new. The Cayce's followers never let his words fade. They funded research, like the 1991 seismic scans, and quietly supported the Khafre project in 2025. Their archives in Virginia Beach are a treasure trove, thousands of pages of Cayce's readings, some so detailed they read like blueprints. One transcript describes a crystal in the Hall of Records that pulses with light, a power source that could heal the nations if used right, or destroy them if misused. Another mentions a metallic codex, etched with symbols no one's seen before, holding formulas for energies we've lost. These aren't just wild stories, they're specific, almost technical, and they keep lining up with what modern tech is finding. If Cayce was right, what's under the Sphinx could change everything: science, history, even how we power our world. But not everyone bought into Cayce's visions. Critics in his time called him a mystic, a dreamer spinning tales for gullible followers. Archaeologists dismissed him as a fraud, saying no one could know what's under the Sphinx without digging. Even today, mainstream Egyptologists like Zahi Hawass scoff at the idea of Atlantis, insisting the voids are just natural cracks or old quarry tunnels. Yet the data keeps poking holes in their arguments. The 1991 scans showed shapes too regular to be random, and the 2025 imaging is even clearer, with tunnels that seem to lead somewhere, maybe to the Great Pyramid, maybe to something bigger. Cayce's defenders point to his track record. He predicted the stock market crash of 1929, the discovery of the Dead Sea Scrolls, and now, it seems, the chambers under Giza. Coincidence? Maybe. But when the same spot keeps showing up, decade after decade, you start to wonder. The strangest part of Cayce's story isn't the predictions themselves, it's the way they feel alive, like they're still unfolding. In his trances, he spoke of a time when the Hall of Records would be opened, not just to reveal the past, but to guide the future. He said 2026 would be a pivotal year, when the stars would shift and the chamber's secrets would come to light. Some have linked this to a rare alignment of Regulus, the heart of Leo, with the Sphinx's gaze at dawn. Some say it's a cosmic signal, a moment when the frequency under the Sphinx the scientists keep hearing will unlock the chamber. Others go further, claiming Cayce wasn't just seeing Atlantis, but communicating with it, maybe through beings who left the chamber as a gift or a warning. It's a lot to swallow, but when you stand in the shadow of the Sphinx, with its eroded face staring into forever, it's hard not to feel like something's waiting. That's the hook that keeps us coming back. Cayce's words aren't just a prophecy, they're a challenge. If he's right, there's a truth under the Sphinx that could rewrite who we are. If he's wrong, it's still a story that makes you question everything. Either way, the Hall of Records isn't just a place, it's an idea, a whisper from the past that says we're more than we think. And as 2026 looms closer, with that strange hum growing louder, one question burns brighter than the rest. What if Cayce wasn't guessing? What if he saw something real, something that's about to change everything? That's the mini-hook that pulls us forward, because if those chambers open, what will we find, and who will try to stop us from seeing it? Oh, and by the way, I'm curious, where are you listening from right now? Is it a quiet night in New York? Or maybe early morning in Sydney? Drop a comment and let me know what time it is where you are, and what you think Cayce saw in his dreams. The year is 1818, and the Giza Plateau is a world away from the hum of modern machines. No seismic scanners, no cosmic rays, just the endless whisper of sand carried by a desert wind that seems to know more than it tells. Giovanni Battista Caviglia, an Italian sea captain turned treasure hunter, stands at the base of the Great Sphinx, his torch casting jagged shadows across its weathered stone. The air smells of dust and damp limestone, and his men, their hands blistered from days of digging, pause to listen. They swear they hear something, a faint echo, like a sigh from deep within the earth when their shovels strike the bedrock. Caviglia's heart races. He's heard the stories. Tunnels beneath the Sphinx, a labyrinth hiding secrets older than Egypt itself. As the moon climbs higher, bathing the lion-bodied guardian in silver light, he wonders if he's on the verge of uncovering a truth that could shake the world. But the desert has a way of keeping its own counsel, and every shovelful of sand seems to bury the answers deeper. Caviglia wasn't the first to chase the Sphinx's secrets, nor would he be the last. The 19th century was a time when Egypt's mysteries drew adventurers like moths to a flame. The great Sphinx, half buried in sand, its face worn but defiant, was more than a monument, it was a puzzle. Ancient texts, from the Greek historian Herodotus to the Roman scholar Pliny the Elder, whispered of passages beneath Giza, a hidden world of chambers and corridors stretching from the Sphinx to the Great Pyramid. Local Bedouin guides, their voices low as they shared tales over campfires, spoke of doorways sealed by time, of air rising from cracks that smelled of wet stone and forgotten rituals. These weren't just stories, they were maps, passed down through generations, pointing to something real, or so the explorers believed. Caviglia, with his weathered journal and relentless curiosity, was determined to find it. His digs were brutal. Sandstorms could erase a week's work in a single night, and the heat turned men's tempers as raw as their sunburned skin. Yet Caviglia pushed on, driven by a rumor that had reached him in Cairo's crowded cafes. A French expedition under Napoleon, just 20 years earlier, had stumbled on a doorway beneath the Sphinx's chest. The story went that Napoleon's engineers, mapping the plateau for military advantage, found a stone slab with faint carving symbols no one could read. They pried it open, only to be stopped by a narrow shaft filled with water, cold and still, like it had been waiting for centuries. The French sealed it back up, or so the tale went, under orders to keep quiet. Some said it was for safety. Others whispered it was fear of what lay deeper. Caviglia, his boots sinking into the sand, wanted to know the truth. His men dug trenches around the Sphinx's paws, their torches flickering as they hit patches where the sand gave way, collapsing into unseen hollows below. Those collapses weren't accidents. Caviglia's journals, now tucked away in a dusty archive in Genoa, describe moments when the ground seemed to shift, as if the earth itself was guarding something. One night, a worker's shovel broke through into a void, and the air that rushed out was cool, carrying a faint tang of minerals, like the breath of a cave. The men froze, their lanterns swaying, half expecting to see something emerge from the dark. Nothing did, but the moment stuck with them. Caviglia sketched what he found, a rough outline of a passage, sloping downward, its walls too smooth to be natural. He called it a threshold, not a tomb or a tunnel, as if he sensed it led to something more. But the desert fought back. Sand poured into the trenches faster than they could clear it, and Caviglia's funding ran dry. He left Giza with more questions than answers, his notes a mix of frustration and wonder, hinting at a door he'd almost touched. By 1850, the Sphinx was drawing others to its shadow. Howard Vyse, a British colonel with a taste for adventure, took up the challenge. Unlike Caviglia's romantic quest, Vyse was methodical, almost ruthless. He brought drills and gunpowder, blasting through the limestone around the Sphinx's base, searching for passages the ancients might have hidden. His men bored a vertical shaft behind the Sphinx's haunches, hoping to hit a chamber. They found only solid rock, but Vyse didn't give up. His workers reported strange acoustics when they struck the bedrock near the pores. The stone rang hollow, like a drum. Vyse noted it in his reports, though he dismissed it publicly as mere curiosity. Privately, he was less sure. His sketches, later published in obscure journals, show dotted lines trailing under the Sphinx, as if he suspected a network of tunnels waiting to be mapped. Then there was John Shea Perring, an engineer who joined Vyse in 1837. Perring was obsessed with the idea of a labyrinth, inspired by Herodotus, who wrote in the 5th century BC of an underground complex beneath Giza, surpassing the pyramids themselves. Perring's team focused on the Sphinx's forepaws, where local guides pointed to cracks that seemed too regular to be natural. One evening, as the sun dipped low, turning the plateau a fiery red, Perring's men uncovered a stone slab, half buried under the left paw. It was smooth, with faint grooves that looked like hinges or seals. They tried to lift it, but the slab wouldn't budge, and the sand kept sliding back, as if the desert itself was closing the door. Perring's notes, now housed in a London museum, describe a sound, a low hum, almost like a chant, when they tapped the slab. He thought it was just the wind, but his workers, locals who knew the plateau's moods, weren't so sure. They spoke of spirits guarding the Sphinx, of voices carried on the air from places no one could see. These stories weren't just folklore. Islamic chroniclers like al-Makrizi, writing centuries earlier, mentioned secret chambers cut into Giza's bedrock, linked by flooded shafts. Even older texts from the Greek philosopher Iamblichus described galleries leading from the Sphinx to the Nile, used for rituals no one could name. These accounts fueled the 19th century frenzy. Explorers weren't just digging for treasure, they were chasing a lost history. Some believed the Sphinx hid scrolls or tablets, maybe even maps of a world before the flood. Others, influenced by whispers from Europe's occult societies, thought the chambers held something stranger, devices or relics from a time when humanity knew more than it does now. The idea wasn't as crazy as it sounds. Napoleon's expedition, which kicked off the century's obsession with Egypt, included scientists who catalogued every crack and shadow. Their drawings, buried in French archives, show faint outlines under the Sphinx's chest, like doorways sketched in haste, as if they saw something they weren't supposed to. The 19th century wasn't all shovels and torches. It was a time of collision between science and superstition, east and west, reason and wonder. Cairo's cafes buzzed with tales of what lay beneath the Sphinx, blending Bedouin legends with European fantasies. One story, passed among British diplomats, claimed a French engineer in 1830 had crawled into a tunnel under the Sphinx, only to emerge pale and silent, refusing to speak of what he'd seen. His name is lost, but the rumour stuck, repeated in letters sent to London salons. Another tale, from a German traveller, described a Bedouin guide who swore the Sphinx's paws hid a trapdoor, sealed with a stone that moved only when the stars aligned. These weren't just campfire stories, they shaped the digs. Explorers like Caviglia and Vyse used them as guides, trusting oral tradition as much as their compasses. But the desert was a harsh master. Every dig faced the same enemy: sand. It poured back into trenches, choked machinery, and buried hope. Workers complained of air that smelled of wet chalk, a sign that moisture lingered in the rock, hinting at sealed spaces below. One account, from an 1840 expedition, describes a worker pressing his ear to the Sphinx's base and hearing an echo, like a distant drumbeat, when his friend struck the stone 100 feet away. It wasn't proof, but it was enough to keep them digging through the night, their lanterns casting long shadows that seemed to dance with the Sphinx's own. These moments, fleeting and unverified, became the stuff of legend, written into journals and whispered in European lecture halls. The century's obsession wasn't just about finding chambers, it was about what they might mean. If the Sphinx hid a labyrinth, it could prove the ancients knew something we didn't. Freemasons and occultists, buzzing in London and Paris, saw the Sphinx as a key to a forgotten science, maybe even a link to a global civilization lost to time. They pointed to texts like the Emerald Tablet, attributed to the mythical Hermes Trismegistus, which hinted at knowledge buried in Egypt's sands. Some even tied it to Napoleon's campaign, claiming he'd found a cache of scrolls under the Sphinx, spirited away to the Vatican to keep them from the world. These ideas, wild as they were, drove men to risk everything: fortunes, reputations, lives to uncover what the Sphinx guarded. By the time the century ended, the digs had slowed, but the questions hadn't. Archaeology was becoming a science, less about treasure and more about timelines. Yet the Sphinx resisted categorization. Its base, scarred by centuries of sand and shovels, held clues that refused to fade. Cracks that rang hollow, slabs that wouldn't move, air that carried strange scents. These were the breadcrumbs left by men like Cavilier, Vise, and Perring. Their work, though incomplete, laid a foundation for the seismic scans of 1991 and the cosmic ray images of 2025. They didn't find the chambers, but they mapped the mystery, drawing lines in the sand that later generations would follow. Those 19th century explorers, with their torches and tattered journals, didn't just dig into stone, they dug into time itself. What if they were right? What if the echoes they heard, the slabs they touched, were the edges of a truth we're only now beginning to see? As the sand settled over their trenches, did it bury a secret that's still waiting, just inches from the surface, for the right hand to open it? In 1991, a steel van sat parked on the Giza Plateau, its engine humming softly under the relentless Egyptian Sunday. Inside, a geophysicist named Thomas de Becky adjusted his headset, his eyes locked on a flickering screen. The air smelled of dust and diesel, and the faint buzz of equipment filled the cramped space. He wasn't digging or drilling, just listening. Low-frequency waves pulsed through the limestone beneath the Great Sphinx, bouncing back as echoes that painted a hidden world below. When the data streamed in, de Becky's breath caught. The screen showed rectangular voids, sharp and symmetrical, right under the Sphinx's forepaws. Too precise to be natural, too deep to be ignored. But before he could share the findings with the world, the project hit a wall not of stone, but of politics. The question wasn't just what lay beneath the Sphinx. It was who got to decide what it meant. This wasn't a treasure hunt. It was science, pure and methodical, using seismic waves to map the unseen. De Becky and his partner, Robert Shaw, were part of a team funded partly by the Association for Research and Enlightenment, the group preserving Edgar Cayce's Prophecies. Their goal was simple: send sound waves through the bedrock, measure how they reflected, and build a picture of what hid below. The equipment was cutting edge for the time transducers buried in shallow slots, cables snaking across the sand, computers crunching data in real time. They expected to find cracks or cavities, maybe old quarry tunnels from when the Sphinx was carved. What they got instead was a shock: clear geometric shapes, about 25 feet down, aligned with eerie precision. One void, rectangular and roughly the size of a small room, sat directly under the right paw, exactly where Cayce had predicted the Hall of Records would be. Another, smaller but just as sharp, ran parallel, hinting at a network of chambers or passages. The data was clean, the readings consistent. De Becky's team ran the scans again, tweaking frequencies between 25 and 75 Hz to rule out errors. Each pass confirmed it. The echoes weren't random. They bounced off flat surfaces like walls, not the jagged edges of natural fissures. The team's logs, later leaked to journals like the Archaeological Review, described a rectangular anomaly with denser than expected margins. In plain English, something man-made was down there, or at least it looked that way. The scientists were cautious, scribbling asterisks in their notes, aware that calling it a chamber could cost them their reputations. But privately, they were buzzing. One technician, his glasses fogging in the desert heat, told a colleague it felt like they'd stumbled on a secret the Sphinx had kept for millennia. Fast forward to 2025, and the stakes got higher. The Caffrey project, armed with cosmic ray imaging tech that uses subatomic particles to peer through solid rock, took the mystery to a new level. Unlike the 1991 scans, which mapped a few voids, this project revealed a sprawling underground complex. Tunnels stretched from the Sphinx toward the Great Pyramid, some wide enough to walk through, others narrow like veins in the stone. A central chamber, circular and massive, appeared to anchor the network, its walls reflecting signals that suggested metal or crystal. And then there was the sound again, that low rhythmic hum, picked up by sensitive microphones. It wasn't seismic noise or wind. It matched a frequency eerily close to the Earth's Schumann resonance, a natural vibration some scientists link to global magnetic fields. The team whispered about harmonic data, wondering if the ancients had encoded something in the stone itself, a message meant to be heard. But science doesn't exist in a vacuum, and the Sphinx's secrets were no exception. The 1991 findings hit a brick wall when Zahi Hawass, Egypt's iron-fisted guardian of antiquities, stepped in. Hawass, a larger-than-life figure with a knack for controlling narratives, dismissed the voids as natural fissures, maybe old cracks from seismic shifts thousands of years ago. He argued the limestone around Giza was full of such quirks nothing to get excited about. Yet his actions told a different story. Sources on X claim he authorized a midnight radar scan in 1993, climbing into a narrow tunnel himself, only to seal it off and bury the footage. The official report from the Egyptian Geological Survey was vague, noting inhomogeneities consistent with natural cavities. But behind closed doors, some team members admitted the shapes were too geometric for comfort, too aligned to be chance. The 2025 data faced similar pushback. The Khafre project's preliminary findings, leaked to sites like Gaia.com, described a subterranean grid that didn't fit standard geology. The circular chamber, dubbed the hub by researchers, showed up on cosmic ray scans with a clarity that stunned the team. Its walls reflected particles in a way that suggested polished surfaces, maybe even inlaid with materials unknown to ancient Egypt. But before the team could publish, permits stalled. Egyptian authorities cited heritage protection, a phrase that started to sound like a code for something else. Rumors swirled that the government wasn't just guarding the Sphinx, they were guarding a secret. Posts on X speculated about international pressure, with some pointing to the Vatican, others to US agencies with ties to black-budget programs. Why? Because if the chambers held technology or records from a pre-flood civilization, it could upend everything: history, religion, even global power dynamics. Enter Robert Schoch, a geologist from Yale who stirred the pot in a different way. In the early 1990s, Schoch wasn't chasing chambers, he was reading the stone itself. He studied the Sphinx's enclosure, the deep pit carved around its body, and noticed something odd. The limestone showed vertical grooves and rounded edges, marks that screamed water erosion, not wind or sand. This was huge. The Sahara hasn't seen heavy rain since around 8,000 to 10,000 BC, long before the Fourth Dynasty's supposed construction date of 2500 BC. Schoch argued the Sphinx was far older, maybe built when the region was lush and green, by a people who predated Egypt's pharaohs. His theory, published in mainstream journals like Nature, backed up Cayce's timeline and gave the seismic data a new layer of intrigue. If the Sphinx was that old, those underground voids could be relics of a lost world, not just quarry leftovers. Mainstream Egyptologists pushed back hard. They argued the erosion came from salt crystallization or groundwater seeping through the rock, not ancient rains. They pointed to quarry marks and temple alignments tying the Sphinx to Pharaoh Khafre's reign. Schoch's ideas, they said, were fringe, too close to the Atlantis talk they'd spent decades debunking. Hawass was especially vocal, calling such theories Western fantasies that disrespected Egypt's heritage. Yet the data kept nagging. The 1991 voids lined up with Schoch's timeline, showing tunnels that seemed to follow the Sphinx's celestial alignment with the constellation Leo, a nod to Cayce's 10,500 BC claim. The more scientists looked, the less it felt like coincidence. The controversy wasn't just about facts, it was about control. Egypt's Supreme Council of Antiquities held the keys to every dig, every scan, every shred of data. In 1991, Dobeki's team handed their findings to Cairo, only to watch them vanish into bureaucratic limbo. The reels of seismic tape, stored in a ministry basement, were classified as national heritage, untouchable, without approval. The 2025 project faced the same fate. Cosmic ray images, which could have been shared globally like the Great Pyramid scans in 2017, were locked away. Why? Some say it's Pride Egypt guarding its story from outsiders. Others point to darker motives. Ex-posts claim the chambers might hold tech or texts that threaten modern institutions, from religious doctrines to energy monopolies. One wild theory even ties it to zero-point energy, a concept physicists are just starting to explore, suggesting the ancients knew how to tap the universe's raw power. The hum added another layer of mystery. In both 1991 and 2025, sensitive instruments picked up a low-frequency vibration, strongest at dawn, when the Sphinx faces the rising Sunday. It wasn't just noise, it had a rhythm, almost like a pulse. Some researchers compared it to the Schumann resonance, a natural frequency tied to the Earth's magnetic field. Others went further, speculating it was artificial, a signal from whatever's down there. A technician on the Khafre project, speaking anonymously on X, described it as like the stone was breathing. He said the sound stopped when they tried to drill deeper, as if something sensed their presence and went silent. Mainstream scientists scoffed, blaming equipment interference or natural acoustics. But the data didn't lie, the hum was real, and it didn't match anything in the geological record. The clash between science and secrecy turned the Sphinx into a battleground. On one side, researchers like Debecki and Schoch pushed for truth, their data pointing to something extraordinary. On the other, Hawass and Egypt's authorities held firm, dismissing the voids as nothing special. Yet the leaks kept coming. A 1993 NBC documentary, The Mystery of the Sphinx, brought the seismic findings to the public, blending Cayce's prophecies with hard data. It was a hit, but Hawass called it sensationalist, revoking permits for the film crew. The 2025 leaks, shared on platforms like Gaia.com, faced similar pushback, with Egyptian officials labeling them unverified. Still, the data persisted, circulating in private archives, whispered about in Cairo cafes. One geologist, now retired, admitted he kept digital copies of the 1991 scans, unable to let them go. He said the voids looked like an X-ray of a dream, too perfect to dismiss. What's really down there? That's the question that burns. The seismic waves and cosmic rays don't lie, but they don't tell the whole story either. Are the voids empty? Just air trapped in ancient cracks? Or do they hold something more: scrolls, crystals, maybe even machines like Cayce claimed? The 2025 scans hint at materials that don't belong. Metallic echoes, crystalline reflections. Could they be remnants of a civilization that knew things we've forgotten? Or is it all a mirage, a trick of the stone amplified by our need to believe? The truth is locked in Cairo's archives, guarded as fiercely as the Sphinx itself. And that's the mini-hook that keeps us guessing. If the data's real, why hide it? What's so dangerous about those echoes that they're buried deeper than the chambers themselves? Oh, and if this mystery's got you hooked like it does me, consider hitting that subscribe button and tapping the bell to catch the next chapter. I'd love to hear your thoughts too. What do you think those scans are hiding? Drop a comment and let's keep unraveling this together. Picture a world 10,000 years ago, when the earth was greener, the skies wilder, and humanity stood at a crossroads. Across continents, from the sun-scorched sands of Egypt to the misty jungles of Cambodia, from the windswept plains of Mesopotamia to the high plateaus of Mesoamerica, colossal stone figures rise from the ground. They're not random statues, they're guardians, lion-bodied and fierce, their eyes fixed on horizons only they seem to understand. The great Sphinx of Giza, with its weathered gaze, is just one of them. In Assyria, winged Lamassu stands sentinel at palace gates. In India, Narasimha, half man, half lion, snarls from temple walls. In the Americas, jaguar gods crouch in ruined plazas, their claws carved with eerie precision. These aren't isolated myths. They're threads in a tapestry, a global network of monuments that whisper of a shared past, a past that might hold the key to secrets buried beneath the Giza plateau. Could these stone sentinels be markers of a lost civilization, their paws guarding memories of a world before the flood? Let's start with the Sphinx itself, its massive form carved from Giza's limestone, staring east as if waiting for dawn to reveal something. It's not alone. Thousands of miles away, in the ancient city of Nineveh, the Lamassu stand just as proud, their human faces framed by lion bodies, wings curling like promises of protection. These Assyrian giants, carved around 700 BC, guard thresholds to palaces long crumbled, their eyes locked on the same eastern sky. Cross the ocean to southern India, and you'll find Narasimha, the lion man deity of Hindu lore, his stone form bursting from temple pillars, teeth bared in a mix of mercy and menace. Travel further, to the jungles of Mexico, where jaguar gods, etched in granite, watch over sacred sites like Teotihuacan, their gazes aligned with the sun's path. Each figure, separated by oceans and centuries, shares a haunting similarity: a feline body, a forward stare, a role as gatekeeper to something sacred. What's going on here? Why do these cultures, scattered across the globe, carve the same archetype? Archaeologists call it coincidence, a case of human minds converging on a universal symbol of power. Lions, they say, embody strength and vigilance, so it's no surprise they show up in art from Egypt to India. But dig a little deeper, and the story gets murkier. The similarities aren't just in form, they're in function. These creatures don't sit in the heart of cities or temples. They mark boundaries, thresholds between the known and the unknown, the human and the divine. The Sphinx guards the Giza Plateau, its paws planted where the desert meets the Nile. The Lamassu flank palace entrances, their wings, a barrier between rulers and the world. Narasimha perches at temple gates, a warning to those who cross without reverence. Jaguar gods stand at the edges of Mesoamerican plazas, their eyes tracking the stars. It's as if they're all part of a system, a network designed to protect something, maybe knowledge, maybe power, maybe a memory too dangerous to lose. This idea isn't new. In his book Fingerprints of the Gods, Graham Hancock argues these monuments might be echoes of a single source, a civilization that spanned the globe before a cataclysm erased it. He points to flood myth stories of a great deluge that appear in Sumerian, Mayan, and Indian texts, all describing survivors who rebuilt with fragments of lost wisdom. Could the Sphinx, Lamassu, and their kin be markers left by those survivors, a way to anchor their knowledge in stone? The idea sounds wild, but it gains traction when you look at the math. Many of these figures align with celestial events. The Sphinx, for instance, faces the rising point of the constellation Leo around 10,500 BC, a date Edgar Cayce tied to its construction. In Cambodia's Angkor Wat, lion statues line stairways that track the solstice, their positions mirroring the stars. Even in Mesoamerica, jaguar figures align with solar cycles, as if they're clocks carved in stone, ticking to a rhythm older than history. The numbers don't lie, but they don't tell the whole story either. Take the Sphinx. Its alignment with Leo isn't just poetic, it's precise, matching the vernal equinox from a time when the Sahara was a lush savanna, not a desert. That's thousands of years before Egypt's fourth dynasty, when mainstream archaeologists say the Sphinx was built. In Assyria, the Lamassu stand under constellations once called Gates of the Gods, their wings pointing to stars that guided ancient navigators. In India, Narasimha's temples often follow sacred geometry, with proportions like the golden ratio showing up in their layouts, a pattern that echoes in Giza's pyramids. These aren't random designs. They suggest a shared blueprint, a kind of architectural DNA passed down through cultures that never met, or so we're told. But here's where it gets stranger. These monuments don't just look alike, they sound alike. Sculptors who've worked on ancient sites describe a peculiar resonance when they strike the stone. At Giza, the Sphinx's limestone hums with a sharp, high note, like a tuning fork. In Angkor, the sandstone lions give a softer, almost mournful tone. In Mesoamerica, jaguar statues carved from granite vibrate with a deep, steady pulse. A modern sculptor visiting these sites called it playing the same instrument in different keys. Why choose resonant stone? Was it ceremonial, meant to amplify rituals? Or was it something more, a way to encode information in vibrations, a technology we've forgotten? Some posts take it further, claiming these frequencies match the Schumann resonance detected under the Sphinx in 2025, hinting at a global network tuned to the Earth's own pulse. The idea of a network isn't just speculation, it's backed by patterns that keep showing up. In Turkey, at Göbekli Tepe, archaeologists uncovered lion carvings dating to 10,000 BC, older than Egypt or Assyria. These aren't grand statues, but small, fierce reliefs, their claws gripping stone as if guarding something sacred. If lions were symbols of protection before known civilizations, what were they protecting? Hancock and others suggest a lost civilization, call it Atlantis, or something else that spread its knowledge before collapsing. The survivors, they say, built these guardians to mark memory sites, places where wisdom was preserved against oblivion. The Sphinx, with its rumored hall of records, might be the central node, its tunnels linking to other sites across the globe. Posts on X even claim similar chambers exist under Angkor Wat and Teotihuacan, waiting to be scanned with the same cosmic ray tech used at Giza. Now, let's push the boundaries. What if these monuments weren't just markers but machines? Not gears and wires, but stone tuned to harness energy, magnetic, acoustic, maybe even cosmic. The idea sounds like science fiction, but it's not as crazy as you'd think. In his book, The Source Field Investigations, David Wilcock explores how ancient builders might have used resonance to manipulate energy, pointing to the precise acoustics of sites like the Great Pyramid. The Sphinx's hum, detected in 2025, could be a clue, a signal from a system still active, waiting for the right frequency to unlock it. Some on X go wild with this, suggesting the lion statues are part of a planetary grid, aligned with geomagnetic lines to channel power or information. They point to myths of sky gods or star beings, like the Anunnaki of Sumerian lore, who supposedly taught humanity how to build these sites. Could the Sphinx and its global cousins be relics of their influence, a network designed to connect Earth to the stars? Skeptics roll their eyes at this. They argue the similarities are psychological, not historical. Humans fear the unknown, so we carve lions, symbols of strength, to guard our sacred spaces. The alignments, they say, are cherry-picked, with researchers like Hancock ignoring dates that don't fit. The resonance? Just acoustics, nothing mystical. Yet even skeptics can't explain everything. Why do flood myths, from Sumer to Mesoamerica, describe lion-like guardians watching over knowledge? Why do these statues share proportions, like the golden ratio, across cultures with no known contact? And why do sites like Göbekli Tepe, older than any pyramid, show lions guarding what might be the world's first temples? The patterns are too stubborn to dismiss, too widespread to be chance. The global network idea gains traction when you map it. Draw lines from Giza to Nineveh, Angkor to Teotihuacan, and you get arcs that hug the Earth's mid-latitude belt, a zone some call a geomagnetic highway. Planetary grid theorists, not exactly mainstream, but not crackpots either, suggest ancient builders chose these spots instinctively, sensing the Earth's energy fields. The Sphinx, positioned where the Nile meets the desert, might be the keystone, its tunnels a hub for this invisible grid. If the Hall of Records exists, it could be more than a library. It could be a control center, storing data not just in scrolls but in the stone itself, encoded in frequencies we're only now starting to hear. AX Post claimed a leaked Caffrey project report mentioned crystalline anomalies under the Sphinx, hinting at materials that could hold information, like a prehistoric hard drive. This network isn't just about stone, it's about story. Every culture with a lion guardian tells a tale of survival, of knowledge preserved against catastrophe. The Sumerians spoke of a flood sent by gods, with survivors guarding sacred wisdom. The Maya described jaguar priests hiding records before a deluge. In India, Narasimha's myth ties him to a cosmic battle, protecting truth from chaos. These aren't just myths, they're echoes, repeated across continents, as if humanity was trying to remember something vital. The Sphinx, with its rumored chambers, might be the loudest echo of all, its gaze a reminder that the past isn't gone, just waiting. But waiting for what? That's the mini-hook that pulls us deeper. If these stone guardians are a network, what were they built to protect? And why does it feel like the answer is closer than ever, humming just beneath the sand? It's 2025, and the Giza Plateau is no longer just a relic of ancient history. It's a chessboard where power, secrecy, and truth collide. In a dimly lit office in Cairo, a stack of seismic reports sits locked in a steel cabinet, their pages stamped with the seal of Egypt's Supreme Council of Antiquities. These aren't just data sheets, they're dynamite, detailing underground chambers beneath the Great Sphinx that could rewrite human history. Across the globe, In Virginia Beach, a small group gathers at the headquarters of the Association for Research and Enlightenment, poring over faded transcripts from Edgar Cayce's Prophecies, convinced the answers to those chambers lie in their hands. Shadowy groups, from government agencies to ancient orders, are pulling strings to keep the Sphinx's secrets buried. The question isn't just what's under the sand, it's who decides whether we ever get to know. This isn't a dusty tale of shovels and torches. It's a modern saga, played out in boardrooms, encrypted emails, and late-night phone calls. The Association for Research and Enlightenment, or AR, has been a quiet force since Cayce's death in 1945, preserving his visions of a hall of records under the Sphinx. They're not just archivists, they're players, funding research like the 1991 Seismic scans and the 2025 Khafre project. Their money helped bring cosmic ray imaging to Giza, revealing a labyrinth of tunnels and chambers that match Cayce's predictions with chilling accuracy. But their involvement comes with baggage. To Egypt's authorities, the R isn't just a group of enthusiasts, it's a Western organization chasing a narrative that could steal the spotlight from Egypt's own history. And that's where the trouble starts. Zahi Hawass, the larger-than-life figure who's guarded Egypt's antiquities for decades, is at the center of this storm. Known for his fiery defense of Egypt's heritage, Hawass has a history of shutting down anything that smells like Western fantasy. In 1991, when Thomas Dobecki's seismic scans found rectangular voids under the Sphinx, Hawass called them natural cracks, nothing more. A grainy video, posted anonymously in 2024, claims to show Hawass himself descending into a narrow tunnel under the Sphinx's right paw, escorted by military guards under cover of darkness. The footage, if real, never made it to air. Sources say it was confiscated, and the documentary crew was sent packing. Hawass denied it, of course, but the rumor persists, fueled by a leaked memo from the ARE suggesting he was briefed on sensitive findings before the project was shut down. The ARE's role is a lightning rod. Founded to preserve Cayce's work, they've poured millions into Giza research, from seismic waves to cosmic rays. Their mission isn't just science, it's spiritual, driven by a belief that the Hall of Records holds knowledge that could heal or transform humanity. But to Egypt's government, that belief looks like a power grab, a way to claim Egypt's past for a Western audience. The tension exploded in 1993 when an NBC documentary, The Mystery of the Sphinx, blended Cayce's prophecies with Dobecki's data, turning a scientific find into a global sensation. Hawass was furious, accusing the crew of exaggeration and revoking their permits. The heir, caught in the crossfire, saw their funding labeled as mystical meddling. The same situation is repeated today. The Khafre project's cosmic ray images, showing a sprawling underground complex, were locked away, with Egyptian officials citing heritage protection. Some claim the real reason is pressure from higher powers groups that do not want to open the doors of the courtroom. Who are these powers? That's where the story takes a turn into the shadows. One theory, wild but persistent, involves the Vatican. The idea is that the Hall of Records contains texts that challenge the foundations of modern religion scrolls, or tablets describing a pre-flood civilization with knowledge that could upend biblical narratives. The Vatican has a secret archive of Egyptian artifacts, smuggled out during Napoleon's campaign in 1798, including a metallic codex found under the Sphinx. No proof exists, but the story resonates because it fits a pattern. Every time a major find surfaces, it vanishes into bureaucracy or worse. Another theory fingers US agencies, with some on X linking the CIA to black-budget programs studying ancient technology. They point to declassified documents from the 1970s, hinting at experiments with zero-point energy that sound eerily like Cayce's descriptions of Atlantean crystals. Then there's the wild card, the Anunnaki. Popularized by shows like Ancient Aliens, this theory claims the Sphinx's chambers were built by extraterrestrial beings who taught humanity advanced sciences before vanishing. X posts in 2025 have gone viral with claims that the Khafre project's cosmic ray scans detected non-human materials in the chambers, metals, and crystals that don't match known alloys. The idea is that these beings, whether aliens or ancient gods, left a network of sites like Giza to guide humanity's future. The Sphinx, with its lion body and celestial alignment, could be a beacon, its tunnels a vault for their legacy. Skeptics dismiss this as nonsense, but the hum detected under the Sphinx matching the Earth's Schumann resonance keeps the theory alive. Could it be a signal? A frequency designed to activate something when the time is right? Egypt's government isn't sitting idly by. The Supreme Council of Antiquities controls every dig, every scan, every scrap of data. In 1991, Göbeki's seismic tapes were classified as national heritage, locked away in Cairo's archives. The 2025 scans met the same fate, with officials citing the need to protect the Sphinx from unstable exploration. But there's more at play. Egypt's economy leans heavily on tourism, and the Sphinx is a national icon. Allowing foreign researchers to claim an Atlantean origin could shift the narrative, making Egypt's history feel like a footnote to a Western myth. Hawass, in a 2024 interview with Al-Aram, called such theories an insult to our ancestors. Yet the leaks keep coming, with ex-posts sharing grainy images of cosmic ray scans showing tunnels that stretch toward the Great Pyramid, some lined with what look like polished stones or metal inlays. The politics of secrecy go beyond Egypt. UNESCO, tasked with protecting global heritage, has tightened oversight on Giza projects since the 1990s. Their guidelines demand neutral science, free from what they call pseudo-archaeological agendas. The Ars funding, tied to Cayce's spiritual vision, doesn't pass the smell test. UNESCO quietly pressured Egypt to limit foreign access to the Khafre project's data, citing cultural sensitivity. But some see a deeper motive. A retired Egyptian archaeologist, speaking anonymously on X, claimed UNESCO's real fear is disruption not of heritage, but of global stability. If the chambers hold advanced technology or texts that rewrite history, they could spark a cultural and political earthquake. Better to keep it locked away than risk the fallout. The human side of this battle is just as gripping. Imagine being a scientist on the Khafre project, your screen lighting up with images of a hidden city under Giza, only to be told to pack up and go home. One technician, quoted in Gaia.com article, described the frustration. We saw it tunnels, chambers, something big, but the permits vanished, and our data went with them. Another researcher, now retired, keeps a private folder of 1990, scans, unable to let go. He described a moment in the desert, standing by the Sphinx at dawn, when the hum seemed to vibrate through his bones, like the stone was speaking. He didn't believe in Cayce's prophecies, but he couldn't shake the feeling that something was alive down there, waiting. Then there's the spiritual angle. The R isn't just funding science, they're chasing a dream. Cayce's readings spoke of a chamber that could heal the nations, but only if humanity was ready. R members gathered near the Sphinx for a meditation session, hoping to tune their minds to its frequency. Some felt a surge of energy, visions of glowing crystals or ancient scripts flashing through their minds. Skeptics call it group hypnosis, but the participants swear it was real, a connection to a past that's still present. This blend of science and spirit infuriates Egypt's authorities, who see it as Western arrogance. Yet the ARE persists. They're funding a quiet rebellion against the official narrative. The battle for control isn't just about data, it's about meaning. If the Sphinx's chambers hold Atlantean relics, they could prove humanity's history is deeper, stranger than we've been told. If they're empty, just cracks in the stone, the myth collapses, but so does the wonder. Egypt holds the keys, but the lock is global, tangled in politics, religion, and the fear of what truth might do. The hum, the scans, the whispers, they all point to something, but no one agrees on what. If the chambers are real, who's guarding them, and what are they so afraid we'll find? Hey, real quick, I'd love to know, where are you tuning in from tonight? Share in the comments what time it is where you are, and what you think is hidden under that desert sand. Stand before the great Sphinx at twilight, when the desert air cools and the last rays of sunlight paint its weathered face in shades of gold and shadow. It doesn't move, doesn't speak, yet its presence feels like a question, one that's been asked for thousands of years. What are we searching for in its silent gaze? The Hall of Records? A hidden chamber filled with scrolls or crystals? A lost city beneath the Giza Plateau? Whispering of Atlantis or starborn builders? Or something deeper, something that lives not in the stone but in us, a longing to remember who we were before history began? The Sphinx isn't just a monument, it's a mirror, reflecting our need to find meaning in the past, to uncover a truth that might tell us who we are. As we chase its secrets, we're chasing ourselves, and the answers may be closer than we think, humming in the spaces between what we know and what we dream. This isn't about data points or seismic scans anymore, it's about why we care. For centuries, the Sphinx has stood as a riddle, its lion body rooted in the desert, its human face staring east as if waiting for a dawn that never fully arrives. Edgar Cayce, the sleeping prophet, called it a guardian, not of treasure but of memory, a vault holding the story of a world that drowned 12,000 years ago. His visions of the Hall of Records, tucked beneath the right paw, weren't just about scrolls or tech, they were about a moment when humanity might reconnect with its forgotten roots. In 1991, when seismic waves traced rectangular voids in that exact spot, it felt like Cayce's dream was coming true. In 2025, when cosmic ray imaging revealed a sprawling underground network, the dream grew bigger, wilder. But what if the real secret isn't what's down there? What if it's the act of searching itself, the way it forces us to confront our own story? Think about it. Every culture has a myth of a lost golden age, a time when we were wiser, closer to the stars, more in tune with the earth. The Sumerians told of a flood that swept away a shining city. The Maya spoke of jaguar priests, hiding knowledge before the world turned dark. In India, tales of ancient sages describe a harmony we've lost. The Sphinx, with its rumored chambers, feels like the anchor for these stories, a physical link to that forgotten time. But it's more than a monument, it's a symbol of cycles, of history turning not in a straight line but in loops, where we rise, fall, and rise again. Cayce said the Hall of Records would be found when we're ready, when we've grown enough to use its wisdom without destroying ourselves. That idea resonates because it's not just about Atlantis, it's about us, about whether we can face our past without repeating its mistakes. The Sphinx's power lies in its ambiguity. It doesn't confirm or deny, it simply watches. Its eroded face, half human, half beast, feels like a bridge between who we are and who we might have been. When 19th century explorers like Giovanni Battista Caviglia dug at its base, they weren't just looking for tunnels, they were looking for proof that humanity's story is bigger than we've been told. When modern scientists like Thomas DeBecke and the Caffrey project team mapped voids with seismic waves and cosmic rays, they were chasing the same thing. Even the wildest theories on X about alien tech or crystalline drives come from that same hunger, that need to believe we're part of something vast. The Sphinx holds space for all of it, a canvas where we paint our hopes, fears, and questions. It's not about finding a chamber, it's about what the search says about us. Consider the hum, that low vibration detected under the Sphinx. Scientists call it a frequency, maybe tied to the Earth's magnetic field, but it feels like more. It's like the desert itself is singing, a note that resonates in your chest when you stand close to the stone. Some believe it is a message, a signal from a lost civilization, encoded in the limestone. Others, like the researchers quoted in Gaia.com, suggest it's a natural phenomenon, amplified by the Sphinx's shape. But what if it's both? What if the hum is the Earth's memory, a reminder of a time when we understood its rhythms? The Sphinx, aligned with the constellation Leo 10,000 years ago, feels like a clock, its gaze marking not just time but meaning. It's as if it's asking us to listen, to remember something we've forgotten, not in a chamber, but in ourselves. This brings us to a deeper truth. The Sphinx isn't just guarding a physical vault, it's guarding a question. What does it mean to be human? Every shovel, every scan, every theory is an attempt to answer that. Cayce's visions, with their talk of Atlantis and crystals, weren't just predictions, they were metaphors for a potential we've lost. He spoke of a time when humanity could channel energies, heal with light, or speak to the stars. Whether that's true or not, It strikes a chord because we want to believe we were once more than we are. The seismic data, showing voids under the pores, and the cosmic ray images, revealing tunnels and chambers, feed that hope. They suggest a past where we built things we can't explain, new things we can't imagine. But they also challenge us. If we find that past, what will we do with it? The Sphinx's silence is its greatest gift. It doesn't answer, it reflects. Every generation sees something different in its face. For the 19th century explorers, it was a treasure waiting to be claimed. For Cayce's followers, it was a spiritual beacon, a promise of enlightenment. For modern scientists, it's a puzzle to be solved with waves and particles. For the conspiracy theorists, it's proof of hidden powers, governments, aliens, or ancient orders keeping truth from the world. Each perspective is a piece of the same mirror, showing us our own desires. The Sphinx doesn't judge. It simply holds space for our questions, letting us wrestle with what we hope to find. That's why it endures, why it draws us back, century after century, to stand in its shadow and wonder. There is a story that describes this perfectly. A woman, part of an ARE meditation group near the Sphinx, claimed she saw a vision during a dawn session. Not a chamber or a scroll, but a light pulsing from the stone that showed her a city under a different sky, a place where people moved in harmony with the earth. She didn't call it Atlantis, but it felt like it. Skeptics would say it was a dream, a trick of the mind under the desert spell. But to her, it was real, a glimpse of what the Sphinx guards, not just a physical vault, but a memory of what we could be. That's the power of the Sphinx. It makes the impossible feel close, like a truth you can almost touch. This isn't just about history, it's about identity. The search for the Hall of Records, whether it's a real chamber or a myth, forces us to ask who we are. Are we just a blip in time, a species that stumbled into civilization? Or are we heirs to something older, something grander? Even the politics, Egypt's tight grip on data, the ARE's quiet funding, the whispers of Vatican cover-ups, reflect our struggle to own our story. We fight over the Sphinx because it's not just a statue, it's a mirror showing us our own fragility, our own potential. What if the Hall of Records isn't a place at all? What if it's a state of mind, a way of seeing that unlocks something inside us? Cayce said it would be found in a time of reckoning, maybe in 2026, when the stars align with the Sphinx's gaze. That date feels close now, with the hum growing louder and the data piling up. But the real discovery might not be in the stone, it might be in how we respond. If we open those chambers, will we use their wisdom to heal, as Cayce hoped, or to repeat old mistakes? The Sphinx doesn't care. It just watches, its eyes eroded but unyielding, asking us to decide what kind of future we want to build from the past we uncover. The desert around Giza is more than sand, it's a canvas for our longing. Every theory, from Atlantis to aliens, is a brushstroke, painting a picture of what we hope is true. The Sphinx holds it all, not confirming or denying, but inviting us to keep asking. That's its genius. It's a question that never resolves, a riddle that grows with every answer we try to give. As we stand on the edge of 2026, with whispers of new scans and cosmic alignments, the Sphinx remains a mirror, reflecting not just our past, but our hunger to know it. And that's the mini-hook that keeps us tethered. What if the truth isn't under the Sphinx at all, but in the way it makes us search, forever chasing the light it casts on who we are? The Giza Plateau is quiet now, bathed in the soft glow of a desert night, the great Sphinx looming like a silent judge over the sands. Its eyes, worn by time, seem to hold a secret they'll never share, a riddle that's drawn explorers, scientists and dreamers for centuries. We've travelled through the whispers of Edgar Cayce's Prophecies, the torchlit digs of the 19th century, the seismic hums of 1991, and the cosmic ray revelations of 2025. We've chased tunnels and chambers, pondered global networks of lion guardians, and wrestled with the politics of hidden truths. But here, at the end of our journey, the question remains, what's really under the Sphinx? Is it a lost city, a vault of ancient wisdom, or just the echo of our own longing? As the stars wheel above Giza, I want to hear from you. What do you think lies beneath? And why does it matter? Let's pause and reflect. The Sphinx doesn't just guard stone, it guards our imagination. Every story we've told, from Cayce's visions of Atlantis to the modern scans showing a labyrinth beneath the plateau, is a piece of a puzzle we're desperate to solve. It's not just about finding a chamber or a crystal. It's about what those discoveries would mean. Imagine standing at the edge of a tunnel under the Sphinx's right paw, the air cool and heavy with the scent of ancient limestone. You hear a faint hum, like the one scientists picked up in 2025, pulsing in time with the Earth. What's waiting at the end of that tunnel? Scrolls etched with the secrets of a drowned world. Machines that hum with forgotten energy? Or maybe just silence? A hollow space that forces us to confront our own need for answers. Your thoughts matter, because this story isn't just mine, it's ours. On platforms like X, people are buzzing with ideas, each one a spark in the dark. One user asked, what if the chambers of the Sphinx contain evidence of alien contact? Could the pyramids be their blueprints? It's a wild thought, but it's not alone. Another post wondered if the Hall of Records is a time capsule left by survivors of a global flood to guide us through a future crisis. Someone else suggested it's all a hoax, a trick of the stone, amplified by our love for mystery. These questions aren't just guesses, they're windows into what drives us. So, let's open that window wider. If you were standing before the Sphinx right now, what would you hope to find? A library of lost knowledge? Evidence of starborn builders? Or maybe just a mirror, reflecting the questions we carry inside? Let's dive into some of the ideas floating out there. One X post from early 2025 caught my eye, claiming the Sphinx's tunnels connect to a global network of energy sites, tuned to the Earth's magnetic field. The user tied it to the hum detected by the Khafre project, suggesting it's a signal, like a beacon waiting for the right moment, maybe 2026, when the stars align with the Sphinx's gaze, as Cayce predicted. It's a heady idea, but it resonates because it taps into our hope that the ancients knew something we've forgotten, something that could change everything. Another post took a darker turn, arguing the chambers are sealed because they hold tech too dangerous for our world. Think zero-point energy, the kind that could power cities or wipe them out. The user claimed the CIA and Egypt's government know this, pointing to declassified files from the 1970s, hinting at experiments with ancient energy sources. True or not, it makes you wonder, why are cosmic ray scans still locked? Then there's the spiritual angle. A follower on X shared a story about meditating near the Sphinx at dawn, feeling a vibration that wasn't just physical but emotional, like a memory stirring. They didn't see Atlantis or aliens, just a sense of connection, as if the stone was whispering about a time when humanity was whole. This echoes what Cayce said. The Hall of Records isn't just a vault, it's a bridge to a wiser past. Could that be what we're really chasing, not artifacts, but a feeling? A sense that we're part of something bigger, something that stretches back to when the Sahara was green and the Sphinx was new? Your take on this matters. Is the Sphinx a guardian of physical treasures? Or is it guarding something intangible, like our need to believe in a deeper story? Let's play with that for a moment. Suppose we open those chambers tomorrow. The Egyptian government lifts its restrictions. The Khafre project's data goes public, and we find a sprawling underground city, just like the cosmic ray scans suggest. What's inside? Maybe it's scrolls, written in a script no one can read, detailing the rise and fall of Atlantis. Maybe it's crystals, glowing faintly, holding data like a prehistoric computer. Or maybe it's something stranger, machines that hum with the same frequency as the Earth, built by hands we can't trace. Would that change how you see yourself? If we found proof that humanity once touched the stars or walked with beings from another world, would it make you feel bigger or smaller? That's the kind of question the Sphinx asks. Not with words, but with its silent, steady gaze. Now, let's flip it. What if we dig and find nothing? Just empty voids, cracks in the limestone, no scrolls or crystals or alien tech. Would that dim the mystery? Or would it make it stronger? The Sphinx doesn't need a chamber to hold our attention. It's been doing that for millennia with nothing but stone and silence. Maybe the real treasure is the search itself, the way it forces us to ask who we are and where we came from. A post on X put it beautifully. The Sphinx isn't hiding a secret, it's hiding us from ourselves. That's a thought worth chewing on. What do you think? Is the mystery enough, or do we need answers to feel whole? I want to hear your stories too. Have you ever stood before a monument like the Sphinx, felt its weight, and wondered what it's trying to say? Maybe you've had a dream, like the geophysicist who retired after the 1991 scans, haunted by visions of a damp tunnel under Giza, its walls slick with secrets. Or maybe you felt a pull, like the ARE meditators who swear the Sphinx's hum stirred something in their souls. Share those moments. They're part of this story, threads in a tapestry that stretches from ancient Egypt to your screen right now. What's your theory? Do you lean toward Cayce's Atlantis, the Anunnaki's tech, or something else entirely? Drop it in the comments. Let's keep this conversation alive. What's next for the Sphinx? Cayce said 2026 would be the year when the stars align and the chambers might open. But what if the real opening happens inside us? What if the Sphinx is waiting for us to remember, not a vault, but a truth we've carried all along? This isn't the end, it's a beginning. The Sphinx's story doesn't close with a discovery or a denial. It grows with every question we ask, every theory we share. Maybe you think it's all about Atlantis, a lost world waiting to be reclaimed. Or maybe you see it as a test, a challenge to prove we're ready for what's hidden. One ex-post from 2025 asked, "What if the Sphinx's hum is a call, and we're just not listening right?" That's the kind of idea that sticks with you, the kind that makes you lie awake, hearing the desert's whisper in your mind. So, let's keep talking. What do you think the Sphinx is guarding? Is it a physical chamber, a spiritual truth, or something we haven't even imagined? Your voice is part of this mystery, and I can't wait to hear it. The night is deep now, and the Sphinx stands as it always has, its gaze fixed on a horizon we can't quite see. Its silence is an invitation, not to find answers, but to ask better questions. Whether it's a city under the sand, a crystal pulsing with ancient light, or just a dream we keep dreaming, the Sphinx holds space for it all. So, tell me, what's your take? What's down there? And why does it keep pulling us back? That's the mini hook that lingers. As 2026 approaches, with its promised alignment of stars, will we finally hear what the Sphinx has been whispering all along? Or will we discover that the real secret is the one we're writing together, right now, in the shadows of its gaze? Hey, if you're loving this dive into the unknown, hit that subscribe button and tap the bell so you don't miss what's next. And let me know in the comments what's your theory on the Sphinx's secrets, and where are you watching from? As the desert night settles in, I'm wishing you a good night's sleep, filled with dreams of ancient mysteries waiting to be explored.